Okay, I think we are ready to start. So good evening, members, ladies and gentlemen, members of the public, and welcome to this evening's Development Management Committee meeting. This is Harlow Council's first online development management meeting, and we will hopefully get through the agenda and answer everybody's issues as we go through. So I want to move straight to the agenda with apologies for absence and any substitutions. Are there any? No. Any declarations of interest? Councillor Michael Hardware.
Yeah, just a non-pecuniary one. I'm ward councillor for the Perry Road application.
Councillor Bob Davis.
Yeah, I've got a pecuniary interest in item A because I'm a councillor for Mark Hall Ward, which is the service fund. So
Non-pecuniary. Yeah.
Non-pecuniary.
Yeah, well, whatever.
That one. Councillor Mike Garnett.
Yeah, non-pecuniary for item 8.
And Councillor Clive Souter.
County Council, yeah.
You're on mute, Councillor Souter.
I actually live, Chairman, in the Stapleton ward, not far away from where Bounce are.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, in that case.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, Councillor Sanders.
Sorry, in regards to declaration of interest, while Burnt Mill School falls into my ward, I don't see that I have to actually declare an interest. Can I ask for advice, please?
Legal officer. Simon, you're here, aren't you, somewhere? Simon Hill?
Yes, Chairman. No, you don't have to declare an interest by virtue of being a ward member.
Thank you. I thought so.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, moving on to the minutes which appear on pages 3 and 4 of your agenda. Sorry, Councillor Garnett, you got your hand up. Did you want to speak? No? You're muted, Councillor Garnett.
Just for the sake of completion, as everybody seems to be declaring a non-pecuniary, Burnt Mill is in my Essex ward as well.
It is indeed. Okay. The minutes which appear on pages 3 and 4 of your agenda, are they agreed?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any matters arising from those minutes? No? Great. There are no written questions. The procedure which we will apply this evening, which obviously will be slightly amended due to the fact we're working online, but will still be broadly the same process that we've used in the past, is the planning officer will present the report. Comments have then been provided from members of the public, of which I have a list, who have registered with government support at least 24 hours prior to this meeting. And they can submit those with a statement of up to 450 words as follows: 3 maximum for, 3 maximum against each application, and each speaker would be limited to 3 minutes if they are speaking live. Comments are then invited from an applicant agent for a maximum of 3 minutes. Again, they need to register and submit their statement by 9 AM of the morning of the meeting with a maximum of 450 words. Councillors will then question and clarify issues within the application, responded by officers. Councillors then debate, and then we will move to a vote on each application. All statements would have need to be sent to hannahcriddle@harlow.gov or the Government Support Centre address at Harlow Council. So moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is item 7, which is Enterprise House on Perry Road. Could I ask the officer who is presenting this to make the presentation, please?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
It's me, is it? Am I up?
Yeah, you are.
Lovely. Okay, so thanks for your time. So I take it you've got the report there. For those that may not know,
Sorry, Chair. I think this might be a representative rather than the officer presentation.
All right.
I was expecting to hear Jade's voice, so I was a bit taken aback then.
Oh, okay, sorry. Is this Jade? Is it?
No problem. Just is Jade on the call?
Shall I go ahead?
Yeah.
Yes, Jade, sorry.
Okay, hello. Okay, the proposed development relates to planning application reference HW FUL 180064 for the retrospective change of use from a BH storage and distribution use class to a sui generis use class comprising a gym, studio and beauty space. This slide shows the location of the application site within the stated site employment area. The application site is outlined in red on the plan shown. Next slide, please, Abby. This slide shows the internal layout of the application building, including the main studio, a smaller studio, a beauty room, a mezzanine level, warehousing, and an office. Next slide, please. This slide shows the proposed car parking plan, but it should be noted that officers do not consider this to be an accurate reflection of the parking situation on site. Next slide, please. This slide shows potential additional car parking spaces at the car wash site nearby to the application site. The remaining slides show photographs of the sites, including Bounce's car park, the parking situation when Bounce is and is not in operation, and the inside of the application building. If you just want to flick through those, Alex, if that's okay. That photo shown there is when I visited the site and Bounce isn't in operation. And the remainder of when Bounce is in operation. This is the warehousing part of the building. And this is the main studio. Okay, so in relation to the officer's report, the proposer would retain a sports and recreation facility within Harlow in compliance with paragraph 73 of the MPPF and policy L2 of the Harlow Local Development Plan pre-submission publication, hereafter referred to as the emerging local plan. It is not considered that the proposer is resulting in harm to the character and appearance of the surrounding area or to neighbouring amenity in terms of noise, in compliance with policy B1 of the local plan and policies PL1 and PL2 of the emerging local plan. It is also considered that the site provides a community benefit, but this needs to be weighed against its impact on the employment area. The key planning policies in the assessment of the proposal in relation to the employment area are policies ER5 and ER6 of the local plan. Policy ER5 sets out that B1, B2 and B8 uses are acceptable uses within the employment area. Policy ER6 sets out that other uses may be considered acceptable if certain criteria are met. This assessment is carried out within the associated committee report, but I shall provide a summary now. The proposal is not considered to adversely impact the range of sites or premises available for employment use and would not result in the loss of an employment site of high quality. It is considered that the use is flexible and that the changes are reversible. It is also considered that the development provides a minor complementary benefit to the employment area insofar as the workers of the surrounding employment unit could use the site. The site is also accessible by means other than the car and would be in accordance with the sequential approach to development, although it is unclear whether the number of jobs has increased or not from the previous use. However, the marketing information submitted demonstrates that the application site was marketed for 3 months. It should be noted that the emerging local plan seeks the site to be marketed for 1 year. It is not therefore considered that the efforts made to market the site for business, industry and warehousing have been demonstrated to the satisfaction of the council. Therefore, it cannot explicitly be stated that there is no prospect of use classes B1, B2 and B8 uses occupying the unit. In addition, it is not considered that the car parking provision is sufficient to accommodate the visitors to the site. It is considered that the associated on-street parking is detrimentally impacting the adjacent employment unit and is creating a pedestrian and highways hazard. It is considered that this would set a precedent for similar development elsewhere in this employment area and in employment areas across the district. It is not therefore considered that the community benefit would outweigh the risk of pedestrian and vehicular safety. So whilst finely balanced, it is therefore considered that the application should be refused. It is, however, considered that the premises could be open from 6 PM onwards prevent an impact on the employment area. It is also considered that the beauty room could remain open during the day, although it is noted that this use may no longer be required based on the committee update. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jade. Right, we have a number of speakers on this application, so I'm going to call Dr. Wazim Mughal first.
Thank you.
Dr. Wazim, you'll have 3 minutes to make your presentation.
Thank you very much. Actor Computers has been an employer in Harlow since 1979, and in 1985, the company moved to its current premises on the Perry Road Industrial Estate. Throughout this time, we have enjoyed good neighbourly relations with the surrounding businesses. When Bounce started to operate out of Enterprise House, the number of vehicles parked on Perry Road increased dramatically. This has often resulted in the road becoming blocked when HGVs and other large vehicles, which are necessary on an industrial estate, are unable to navigate Perry Road. It is clear that this build-up of parked cars is caused by Bounce customers, as the increased number of parked cars occurs during the Bounce sessions. This is shown in the photographs that we served in our earlier submissions. I believe some of them have just been displayed. Enterprise House itself can barely provide enough off-street parking for Bounce staff vehicles. Therefore, the customers are forced to park dangerously, resulting in them parking on bends, blocking junctions, blocking pavements, and even resorting to parking on our property next door. The nature of our business requires numerous delivery vehicles to be able to enter our facility daily to deliver and collect goods. Without this ability to operate as a business, the ability to operate as a business and the livelihoods of all our employees are put at risk. We also own and operate an early years nursery on Perry Road. Due to the increased number of parked cars created by the Bounce operation, the pavements are often blocked, forcing both parents with pushchairs and young nursery-aged children into the road, putting their lives potentially at risk. In our research laboratories, we use hazardous chemicals. If there was an accident, then urgent hospitalization may be required. Clearly, a blocked road would hinder the ability of the emergency services to access our facility. We have tried to engage with Bounce without success regarding the problems caused by the parking of their customers. Due to the concerns outlined in our formal objection, our commercial operation and the trading ability of other businesses on Perry Road are being potentially put at risk. We welcome employment and enterprise in the area. However, this must not be to the detriment of other neighbouring employers. The Enterprise House facility cannot provide the off-street parking requirements needed for the Bounce operation without impacting upon other businesses such as ours. Unfortunately, we have to object to this change of use application.
Thank you very much. We have 3 people speaking for this application. First, I'd like to call Kimberly Perry, who I understand is joining via Zoom. Again, you'll have 3 minutes, Kimberly.
Can you hear me okay, everyone?
We can, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so Bounce has brought national recognition to the town of Harlow for its positive impact on health. We've won many awards, including Company of the Year at the Business Excellence Awards, Best Fitness Class for Parents 2 years in a row, and the Harlow Chamber of Commerce awarded Bounce Business Innovation of the Year in 2018. Active Harlow recognised Bounce with the Inclusive Communities Award in 2019. Robert Halfon even invited us to tour the Houses of Parliament for raising money for PHA Hospital. And last month, Bounce raised a further £50,000 for the NHS during coronavirus. We are doing major things to contribute to the good reputation of Harlow. Bounce created child-friendly fitness for parents, so people in this community can bring their children along while they exercise. Prior to our pioneering idea, parents could not go inside a commercial premises with their kids to do this anywhere in Harlow. We are breaking down barriers to exercise by finding ways to support more cross-sections of society. 97% of our attendees are female, so we contribute heavily to the well-being of women and girls in Harlow. We also have affiliations with Safer Places, a domestic violence refuge in Harlow, and also Mind West Essex to offer free classes in the daytime for anyone affected by domestic abuse or poor mental health. Harlow needs you to approve this request so we can continue our outstanding work for this town every day. I'd like to bring your attention to the Harlow Health and Wellbeing Strategy. Bounce features on the very first page of this town's strategy and health. Their partners across boundaries and internal council departments, including planning, housing, and environmental health. The Harlow Health and Wellbeing Partnership Board is committed to finding local solutions and ensuring that this partnership strategy is implemented so as to improve the health and well-being of all. We are on the front page of this. I'm proud of being in Harlow and I don't want Bounce to have to leave this town. I'm a Harlow ambassador. We're chosen as a featured location to promote Pride of Place in Harlow. You can see this on the Discover Harlow initiative site. Our premises were also chosen by Chris Purvis, who is Harlow Council's Sports and Leisure Policy and Development Officer, to host the board meetings at Bounce. I was a guest speaker at Harlow's Health and Wellbeing Partnership Strategy meeting, presenting the success of Bounce in Harlow and what we have done for this town. And I'm a guest speaker at the Essex Community Rehabilitation Conference, speaking on the positive in the criminal justice system. Bounce has also signed the Time to Change pledge with Mind West Essex, focusing on improving mental health stigma. Our ability to continue the outstanding work that Bounce is known for in this town depends on you today and your judgment. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. I'd now like to call the next speaker. Let me bring my list up, which is Julian Sample. Again, Julian, I believe, is joining via Zoom.
Good evening, everybody. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for allowing me to speak in support of Bounce's change of use application. My name is Julian Sample. I'm Assistant Principal and a member of the executive team at Harlow College. As a significant provider of adult education and training programs in Harlow, we can see the real benefit that the proposals will have in supporting the engagement of local adults in education and training. Harlow College have worked with Bounce for over a year to engage hard-to-reach groups within Harlow and the surrounding areas, and we've seen at first hand how much Bounce invest in the local community and have found their approach to be very community focused. As a college, we have often found it difficult to engage with adults who are not registered with the Job Centre Plus, but who are still in need of training programs to develop essential work and life skills. It is partnerships such as the one we have developed with Bounce that are vital in ensuring the educational opportunities available to the local community reach all eligible participants. We work with Bounce to provide a wide range of free training programs with the aim of engaging with a variety of communities. Our partnership was formed to specifically target groups such as young parents and families who require a more flexible approach to learning and for whom our online learning courses are ideally suited. Where Bounce have child-friendly classes during the day, these have been a particular focus of engagement to encourage this harder to reach group to take up learning, initially at level 2, with the opportunity to progress with further learning at the college. Over the last year, we have worked with over 75 learners that have been engaged through our partnership with Bounce. It is my opinion that without this partnership, these learners would not have undertaken their educational courses. We are proud to work with Bounce and are supportive of their plans. Thank you.
Thank you, Julian. I've got one more, which is from Danielle Moraldo, and I understand that is a written statement, which Hannah's going to read out.
Yes. Can you hear me, Chair?
Yes.
Perfect. Dear Sir/Madam, I wish to express my concern at the proposed changes to the operating hours at the HQ of Bounce. I have been an attendee of Bounce for a considerable time. There are many reasons why I still attend up to 4 times a week, most of which are in the morning. Speak to any one of the attendees, men or women, and they will all tell you the same thing. Bounce is an amazing community of people, the bulk of which are Harlow residents, with many travelling in from surrounding areas to attend, in my opinion, the best fitness classes available in our town. As a shift worker for the Metropolitan Police, who mainly works a 2 p.m. till 10:30 p.m. nights and weekends, I find it difficult to find a class that accommodates my shift hours. Bounce does that perfectly. The hours in which you wish to alter are those hours that I have to exercise. In an age where we are actively encouraging people to take better care of themselves, both physically and mentally, taking away these classes will have a massive impact on those who rely on them, including myself. Bounce is a beautifully non-judgmental haven. All abilities, shapes and sizes are welcome in a safe environment. Exercise is cathartic and has many feel-good benefits and, more importantly, health benefits. Changing the operating hours shuts the door firmly on these. As Bounce is a child-friendly organisation, many of the attendees in the morning classes are new mothers with small children or babies who have that small window of time to do something positive and something for themselves whilst their older children are at school. It's a great place for new mothers who may be suffering from postnatal depression to come and meet other mums and make new friends. The facilities are excellent and there is ample parking for everyone, which is ideal when you have small children to convey from your vehicle to the premises. The imposed changes also affect my family. My 3-year-old attends every morning class with me. She has the freedom to bounce right next to me on a trampoline of her own, play in the designated soft play, or stay with me whilst I exercise. This is practically impossible to find anywhere else, if not impossible. Most evening classes are not agreeable for me, for parents or single parents with young children for obvious restrictive reasons. Kimberly Perry and her instructors are the most devoted, passionate and motivational people you would care to meet. They provide such an amazing service to our town, one which no doubt would be damaged if restrictions are sanctioned. Kind regards.
Thank you. Okay, and lastly, the agent stroke applicant, Chris Perry. You also have 3 minutes, Chris.
Hello. Can you hear me okay?
You can, yeah.
Hi guys, great. Okay, yeah, thanks for your time. Yeah, for those that don't know, Harlow is the birthplace of Bounce, mini trampoline fitness classes. It's become the fastest growing fitness and wellbeing brand in the UK. We are the franchisor. An enterprise house in Harlow is the figurehead HQ to 320 franchised studios across the UK, which see around 47,000 attendees each month. This pandemic has affected us a lot. I think it's worth noting to start with that the details of our application have changed very recently due to the predicted future changes in our operations. We've now shifted heavily to online classes. So the use of the building has moved much more towards the storage and distribution of trampolines, exercise equipment, clothing. We currently receive shipments every quarter, around about 300 mini trampolines. And this will now be up to around about 1,000 per quarter. And these are all stored, distributed from the property to franchisees setting up across the UK, and now more recently to individuals working out at home. The beauty aspect you saw earlier, that will no longer be in the building, unfortunately. So this room, as you can see on the plans, that will now remain as just storage because we need to increase that. Also, much of the mezzanine floor will now accommodate trampolines and merchandise due to that increase. Application will therefore be part D2, sports and recreation, and with the rest remaining B8, storage and distribution. This also feeds into the absolute suitability of this property for our business. There isn't and never was another site as suitable to our needs as this one. It offers a large open space for the variety of activities we offer and the stock that we hold. It has adequate ceiling height, as most of it obviously involves jumping on trampolines. It has loading bays for all the stock deliveries we regularly receive. It's conveniently located to avoid any issues with noise affecting any of the residents or any other businesses, as the music is a huge part of what we do. And its location in Staple Tie, it's been identified in the report as one of high deprivation and health inequalities. And with no other health and wellness provisions in the area, we feel it's a great fit. The report states the site is of poor quality in itself. So, we've invested over 150,000 in developing the interior of the property. Can only really be considered positive for everyone for now and in the future. It's clear also that the Essex Highways Authority had no objections to make on this application. Yet we do understand that on-site parking during the day is the main contention really with this. And even if you don't feel that our huge positive presence across the immediate and wider community warrants passing this application, then here's a number of things maybe we could do. We're more happy to do to maybe come to a compromise. So we could reduce the class sizes of the daytime sessions to a level that, you know, the council will be happy with. We can maybe add in an extra daytime class or two to spread the attendees' traffic across the morning, so you haven't got that one time where everyone's arriving and leaving. We could maybe just offer daytime classes just maybe on a couple of days of the week as a compromise. We could even have to arrange and pay for traffic bollards, no parking signs, double yellow restrictions in the very immediate vicinities of access points. To other businesses.
Sorry, could I ask you to wrap up? You've reached your 3 minutes.
Very quickly. We just spoke to a landlord. There is actually a plot next to us, 500 square metres, which can join our current car park. That allows for an extra 15 car parking spaces. We're happy to take on that lease if you feel that that will sway your decision on approving this application.
So look, I just want to make clear to anybody watching, we're not here to debate what might happen in the future with changes in your business plan. We are here just to debate the application that's in front of us. And what I understand that you know, you may have counter proposals that will obviously depend on the outcome tonight. Tonight, we're not here to have a negotiation. We're here to look at this current planning application and decide it one way or the other. And pending that, you know, clearly there may be other things that happen, but that is the process that we're following at the moment. Right, those are the speakers. Members, are there any questions? Councillor Garnett, I see you've got your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. Just one question. And did the applicants supply us with a list of other sites that they considered before they moved here?
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. I think they looked at 14 other sites from memory, and none of them were suitable for their needs in the main because they didn't have high enough ceilings to trampoline.
Thank you.
Councillor Danvers.
Thank you, Chair. In regards to the parking issue and all the photos that we saw, is that entirely related to this activity, or is it just generally the tenants of that area? Because it seems a little bit unfair just to put up some pictures of a heavily congested area without qualification. What kind of timescale was that? I gather from the person who was opposing it that the photos were from him. I would have thought we really need some impartiality about how congested that is and whether in fact that's all down to bounce.
Councillor, I can reply to that one. So the photos came from me. I visited it a few times since this application has been in. There is no doubt some parking when bounce isn't in operation. So that photo that's on the screen there, that's the parking. It's a smattering of parking basically when bounce isn't opening in operation. But there are still some cars. They're not all associated with bounce. The other photos for one of the morning sessions, I turned up relatively early and I did notice it getting busier and busier, and the people leaving the cars were customers of bounce. And you could tell by the clothing they were wearing, the direction they were heading. One of the bounce cars has the logo. Sorry, one of the cars in the photos had the bounce logo in it. So it was fairly clear to me that they were associated with that unit.
Thank you.
Councillor Souter.
Just a couple of questions. In the report, it said you were at Parringdon before. Why did you leave Parringdon? And two, your estate agent only had the letting up for 3 months, where it should be for at least a year. I know one of my customers had his up for over a year before he actually sold it.
Okay. That's not a question for the officers, is it? You're muted, Councillor Souter.
What I know is why the estate agent only had it up for 3 months when they're normally supposed to have it for a year, and also why did they leave Parringdon?
Well, I don't think necessarily officers can respond to that, Councillor Souter. I get you've got a question, but that's not really relevant to the application.
I can answer if need be.
So, Councillor Halkett.
Thank you, Chair. In the supplementary document, you're talking about reducing the daytime. It appears from halfway down that supplementary document that it's going to be more storage. The beauty room is going to be removed, the mezzanine floor, more storage for trampolines and merchandise. Are you sort of swinging away from the physical health and well-being side and going into the storage side? Thank you.
Jade?
Well, based on the update and for the COVID-19, it appears, as Kimberly said, I believe that they're moving to more online classes for obvious reasons. So at the moment, yes, it probably is more tailored towards storage and distribution, but we have to assess the application as it is. And in the future, when hopefully COVID has settled down a bit, I'm sure business will likely need to start back up at the unit, sorry.
Happy with that, Councillor Halkett? Councillor Hardware.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of questions. First one is this is a retrospective application. Are we aware of why they didn't apply before they started operations? That's my first question.
From talking to the applicant, it wasn't deliberate. It was a mistake on their part. I think they got the wrong advice, not from this department, from memory.
And my second question is that we're saying that there isn't adequate parking. What would be adequate parking and how close are they to providing it?
I think they required 41 car parking spaces.
Yeah.
Realistically, they've got 5. So I think 12% from a memory in the report.
12%.
Yeah.
So they're
Yeah.
way off.
Way.
Okay. Any more questions, members? In that case,
Well,
once to move.
sorry.
For Clark, have you got a question?
Just in relationship to that, I don't know if we can ask this because it is the future, but whether in fact how many places would be accommodated in the next area of room that was mentioned by the app.
I think, you know, should I mean, let's not worry about what may or may not happen in the future. We are assessing this application that's in front of us.
Yes, I do see that.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to debate. Any debate, members? Councillor Danvers.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not unsympathetic to this in regards to the way in which they've actually established themselves, and the contribution they're actually making to the town cannot really be discounted. I understand the concerns that have been expressed by the local businessman that we saw, and I can respect that. But in regards to changing circumstances, I think whether it's a planning issue or not, circumstances are now changing, and like tonight's meeting proves, we are changing the way in which we're working and engaging in our leisure activity. And I think we would be foolish to actually discount that as well. They've invested very heavily in this. They clearly make a great contribution to the town. I'm very impressed with the way in which they've spoken about equal opportunities, and equally with their links with Harlow College. They clearly have put themselves on the map very quickly. It's not really, I like actually discussing retrospective planning permission because I think it's wrong normally. But given all the circumstances that we've heard, marginally, I'm of the opinion to actually agree this tonight. Thank you.
Councillor Garnett.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Right. Yes, we can't take anything away from them. They've obviously worked very hard, and they're very secure in what they've done. But you know, we have got a problem here. It's a retrospective application. There are immense parking problems down there, I think, even before this arrived. But we can't expect them to to deal with the existing problems. But I think we have a perfect right to say, well, you can't make it exasperate the situation, and which is what's happening. I was down there twice today, and the parking is extremely difficult when they've got I didn't see them when they had run a meeting, but looking at the pictures that were shown, you know, there's obviously very, very difficult for lorries to get through to the other businesses. And I understand about Actar computers, and they need to have 24-hour access. So that's something we have to take into consideration, and quite strongly take into consideration. And the problem we have is it's not necessarily with Bounce, but it's their customers, if you like, who will come early or late, and they will park anywhere they can park their car, whether it's on the pavement, whether it's on a bend, whether it's blocking access, or whether it's on somebody else's property. So I think, you know, they are in breach of ER5, ER6, and PR1, which deals with the advertising, or the previous the landlord has to advertise it for 12 months. They only did it for 3 months, so it wasn't given a good chance to sell to somebody else. I think they need to be looking somewhere else. We'd love to keep them here, but not at this particular place, which is such narrow, and inaccessible to large lorries. As far as perhaps the future, they talk about taking over perhaps a lease on another property, take some more parking. That's irrespective. It doesn't bear relation to this application. We have to deal with this application. Sorry, I'm stumbling here a bit, but I'm trying to look at papers and bring up the difficult, well, where we are. So I think, on balance, whilst we could say yes, it's a good business to have in Harlow, not in this place. It's totally the wrong place, and they need to find somewhere else. So I think I'll end up there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Garnett. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say that I know Kimberly. I've met her at Discover Harlow events and recognise the activities that they've undertaken for good of the community. They've been sort of active in a number of things that I've been involved in. I'm concerned that they didn't talk to us about the application. They were probably given the wrong information, and that's a pity, because if they talked to us, they'd understood what the situation was. I think there's a big problem with parking. What I'd like to happen is that the council talk to them and trying to help them find somewhere that's going to be more appropriate. At the moment that the application is going on, but when the lockdown actually is lifted, it's going to create another problem with the parking again. So I think the council should be working with this really good organisation to find something that's acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Holcote.
Thank you, Chair. On the application itself, the development for means other than the car is mentioned. If that was the situation, those cars wouldn't be there. You'd have other forms of transport to get to the site, and that would be very helpful. But at the moment, that is not the case. And I agree with Bob that another location is definitely the way forward, because it would have better parking, etc., etc. But because we're where we are at this stage with the application, we've got to consider the parking around that site and the dangers that it does entail with the nursery, etc. And I don't think that at this stage it's going to go forward. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Clark.
Yes, I tend to agree very, very reluctantly. I think that it does contribute very much to the health and well-being and community facilities. Got excellent equal opportunities policies. But the fact remains, there are only 41 spaces, and there are 41 spaces which are desired, and only 5 are being provided. And it's difficult to get out of that. I would like to see an open-ended, not a complete turning down of the application, turning it down as it stands, but leaving them where they are while discussions are ongoing in order to improve the situation. A whole number of proposals were put forward by the manager or whoever he was.
Councillor Clark, are you suggesting deferral?
I think that's what I am. Yes, thank you.
So
I second that, Chair.
okay, well, we would need to check with the applicants if that's something they'd be interested in. But before we get to that point,
yeah,
I've got one other person to come in who's got his finger up. Have you finished, Councillor Clark?
yes, that's all right. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hardware.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd say I've also met Bounce. Hugely impressed with their operation, hugely impressed with what they do. And obviously it's popular because of the problems that they have. But on the other side of the coin, they only provide 12% of the required parking. They are causing problems to their neighbours in the estate, in particular to the computer company next door, which has to have 24-hour access. But it strikes me, having listened to Chris Perry making his presentation, saying that they are going more online and using this facility more for distribution and storage. Just to throw this in, is it possible to consent this with a condition that they can only have the bounce classes, say, after 6 o'clock and at weekends? That way they can keep the distribution and all the daytime stuff, but keep all the traffic to outside office hours when there isn't such a problem. Just an idea.
So it would need to be proposed and accepted, but yes. Sue, Councillor Livings. You're muted, Councillor Livings.
Right. Chairman, it seems Bounce has done a great deal of good work within the community. And my main problem with this planning application is the parking problem. Having looked and heard other councillors speak about the parking, I think that possibly all the cars around there weren't relevant to Bounce, but it's still a problem there. And it's a shame because they've obviously done great works for the community. Thank you, Chair.
So, Mr. Perry, could you say whether you'd be prepared to defer this so that the council could work with you on potential solutions?
Oh, God.
You'll need to unmute yourself. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can, yes.
I can't start my video because the host.
All right, we can hear you. We need
to. Yes, yeah. I mean, we'd be happy to look at it again, given that our circumstances have changed a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, may I offer some quick? I can't raise my hand, unfortunately. May I offer some quick advice?
Yeah.
Thank you. So, just for the committee's information, there's 3 separate streams that have been talked about. So, you need to be aware that there is a live enforcement case against this site. So, deferment would have implications for that enforcement. We can't take forward any enforcement activity if there's a deferment of the planning application. That's just so you're aware that's an implication of that. One benefit of deferment is that you have in your addendum sheet some further options that have been put forward by the applicant and a description of the change to their business as they anticipate it going forward. A deferment would allow the opportunity for us to cement that with the applicant and undertake further public consultation so that we can gain people's views on that change to what they're doing. The other thing you need to consider is that a deferment would continue the operation once lockdown is finished in the way that it has. So those people who are concerned about the harm in terms of the car parking, the impact on pedestrians nearby, that would continue during the deferment period whilst we worked with the applicant to see whether there was ways to amend the application to address some of those concerns. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Garnett, you've got your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm just going to come into, basically Alex has come up with some of my reasoning about not going for a deferment is that the operation would continue as it is with all the problems it's currently causing. So, you know, I feel we need to deal with the application as it stands tonight, and they have the right perhaps to come in a much, so they stop it forthwith, but have the right to come back at some future time with a fresh application with what can be agreed between the council. But if we let them carry on with the parking problems at the moment, we're not changing anything, and that could drag on for another month, 2 months.
Thank you, Councillor Garnett. You are absolutely correct. However, we do have a motion to defer that's been seconded. So could we start moving to the votes then, unless anybody else wants to speak? No?
Can I just say something, please? Can I just make one last comment?
No, you can't. Sorry. Right. So moving to the vote. All those in favour of deferring the application, please indicate with raising your hand. One, two, three, four, 5 plus Jean. I think that's 6. Okay, so we've got 6 for deferring. All those against deferment? Three. Okay, that is therefore deferred for further work as agreed with Mr. Perry. Okay. All those of you that came specifically for that application, you're welcome to stay and witness the rest of this evening. You're also welcome, should you wish to leave. Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is item 8, which is service bays, which appear on pages 7 to 11 of your agenda. Who's presenting this one?
I am, Chair, again.
Oh, thank you, Jade. Go on then.
Alex needs to share his screen.
Yeah.
Okay, so this application relates to the redevelopment of the existing service bays into a mixed-use development comprising 88 number 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, 10 live-work units and 545 square metres of B1 use. The proposal also incorporates an undercroft car parking area, a mews courtyard and a residential garden. Next slide, please. Okay, this slide shows the location plan of the sites outlined in red here. To the north is Aldi. St Andrew's Methodist Church is located to the south. The Stowe car park is located to the east, and Howard Way is located to the west. And there's the aerial photograph of that as well. Next slide, please, Alex. This shows the proposed site plan. So here we have the undercroft car parking, the units, the waste storage, and the B1 unit in blue at the bottom. Next slide, please. The first floor plan shows the communal garden at first floor level. The point of these slides is to show the decrease in height across the site. So next slide, please, Alex. So it slowly decreases in height until we get to the third floor plan, which is on the next slide. You start to see it taper off. And then on the fourth floor, so the fourth floor development is located on the Aldi corner on the roundabout, basically. The next slide shows the elevations. So the top elevation is the view from the existing car park opposite the site. The bottom elevation is the view from along Howard Way. Next slide, please. The top elevation is the view from Aldi's car park, and the bottom is the view from within the mews in the development itself. I've specifically showed this slide because, as members probably remember, this application was previously refused last year due to its proximity to the church. So the top elevation again is the view from Howard Way. The bottom then carries on that elevation, and it shows the proposed gap now between the proposed development and the church. So the church is the furthest building on the right there, and that distance is the distance of 3.5 metres. Though to be clear, there will be boundary fencing to ensure the security of the site so that people can't just walk in, and to direct people round the site into the main entrance. Next slide, please, Alex. So this was the development as previously refused. So as you can see, it was built directly up to the side of the single-storey portion of the site. I'm not sure how clearly you can see it, but it's basically the shadowy section next to the church was the single-storey element, and then the proposed development was built directly up to it. Next slide, please. Now this is the proposed proximity to the church. So you'll see that it's been pulled over. So you've got the black grey building on the right is the church with its smaller single-storey element next to it, then a gap, and then the proposed development. Next slide, please. And then this is just another viewpoint a bit closer up, just to show the gap further. Next slide, please. So this will be the view from along Howard Way. Admittedly, the gap isn't shown very clearly there, but there will be a gap as shown on the elevations. Next slide, please. So here we have the car parking plan. The light purple spaces are parking for residents. The dark purple is disabled parking for residents. The light blue is parking for B1 uses, and the dark blue is disabled parking for the B1 uses. Next slide, please. These are just photographs I've taken for service industry bays. At the moment, they are empty, barring a few that aren't within the application boundary, red line boundary. The next slide shows the distance to the neighbours. The next slide, the view of St Andrew's House, which is next to the site. And the bottom photo is the current space in between the church and the service industry bays. The next slide just shows the landscaping around the site at the moment, including a picture of the vegetation along Howard Way, which is in the bottom right-hand corner. Okay, so as I mentioned previously, planning permission was refused last year by the Development Management Committee for the redevelopment of the site for a similar proposal. It was refused by virtue of its density and close proximity to the church, and was considered to be overdevelopment on the spaces as it would enclose, result in a loss of light and be overbearing to the church. So this application has set the proposed development 3.5 metres away from the church to overcome the previous reason for refusal. As I said, to be clear, there'd still be boundary fencing erected between the two buildings for security purposes, but it is considered that the previous reason for refusal has been overcome and pulled off of the boundary quite significantly. In addition, the proposal offers a mixed-use development involving new residential live-work units and B1 uses, which would regenerate the service industry base and would act as a catalyst for wider change. In addition, the proposal would make effective use of previously developed land and would result in the development of a housing site allocated within the emerging local plan. The proposed development would also comply with the Stowe FBD and the provision of live-work units and B1 units, which would respect the original purpose of the service industry base. In addition, the proposal would respond to local character through the incorporation of key features of the Stowe in a modern way and would enhance the character, image and perception of the area. It is also considered that the proposal would be acceptable in terms of landscaping, listed buildings, amenity, access and highway safety, ecology and archaeology. If viable, the proposal would be required to provide 30% of the scheme as affordable housing and would be required to provide contributions, including £32,000 towards the NHS and £127,000 towards local primary school provision. A viability assessment has been submitted. The local planning authority had this assessment independently assessed by a viability consultant. The consultant concluded that the proposed scheme is unviable, i.e. no affordable housing or contributions can be provided. However, the applicant has offered to pay £50,000 in contributions, which would cover the requested NHS contribution, with the remaining money to be put towards local primary school provision. secured within a Section 106 legal agreement. It's not considered that a clawback mechanism would be required if any permission granted was subject to an 18-month time limit. The logic behind this approach is if the local planning authority can be satisfied that the development is to commence quickly and is likely to come forward before there is significant change in economic cycles, the review mechanism would be less necessary, and the best means to achieve this would be to reduce the implementation period for the resultant planning permission from 3 years down to 18 months. The Section 106 legal agreement would also be required to secure a management company to move and present waste to meet the collection requirements of council operatives. So whilst finely balanced, the benefits are considered to outweigh the viability issues, and when taken as a whole, the proposal is considered to be compliant with the MPP, the relevant policies within the local plan, the emerging local plan and the Stowe SPD. The application is therefore recommended for approval, subject to conditions, and the applicant entering into an appropriately worded legal agreement to secure the £50,000 and the provision of a management company to move and present this waste. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jade. We have no speakers for or against this application, but the agent, Philip Florchak, is hopefully here and is going to speak. He is.
Yes, I am. Thank you. Can everybody hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, thank you for the invitation and hope you're all keeping well in these difficult times. There are essentially two aspects we'd like to draw your attention to. Firstly, despite of all of the unknowns we have to currently endure on a daily basis with both Brexit and COVID, the applicant is still eager to regenerate the area for the benefit of the community, which is reflected in his commitment to signing up to the 18-month agreement to deliver the scheme on site. Now, the applicant could easily rent out the units or implement permitted development, which could be equally viable or not. However, he respects and sympathises with the regeneration needs this local community deserves, which was also reflected in our brief to design a high-quality development, even if it cost a bit more. The second point is we'd like to clarify a couple of things as a response to the objection from our neighbour at the church and how we've addressed the reason for the previous refusal. Similarly to last year, we present a scheme which has no statutory objections, comes with a high endorsement from the urban designer and is recommended for approval by Harlow Council. Contrary to the statement, the church has no right of way over our land. The fire door, introduced after 2005, does not change that. However, as a gesture of goodwill, the applicant is happy to formalise that path and introduce a gated access for church only to ensure all pedestrian traffic is driven through Stowe, thus improving retail and commercial exposure. The drainage and maintenance requirement highlighted in 1953 conveyance does not stipulate that the land must remain a grassed area, but we are obviously retaining this buffer and improving it in terms of ease of maintenance, security, integration with the context, and bringing a sense of ownership to the area which has a troubled past. Undoubtedly, you will be appraising the existing windows. All but 2 of them are for non-habitable rooms, while the remaining ones are secondary windows to the hall, with the main outlook being into the church courtyard to the south. It's also worth noting that all of these windows have been erected right on the church boundary and will offer no direct sunlight because of poor northern orientation. Although memorial trees are not a planning consideration, the applicant is again happy to contribute to the retention of those trees by replanting them and integrating as part of tree-aligned boulevard along Howard Way in a considered and planned manner. As you can see from the photos, those 3 existing trees do not follow that landscape pattern at the moment. Contrary to the point made in the objection, the development does not propose any retail space, as it would be against the policy, while the commercial nature of the ground floor is prescribed by Stowe SPD. The same document you have approved as a council labelled this particular grassed area as a development, which included both parking and built form. And finally, inevitably, you are bound to discuss the parking provision, something that ironically is already being impacted and will be impacted even further in the aftermath of the pandemic and the number of car journeys will take. And how we separate, obviously, from others. Stowe SPD has earmarked lower parking requirements for this area, which was the result of consultation carried out with the council, councillors and local residents. And we've been guided in our parking design by Harlow Planning and Highways Department, who described our provision as more than sufficient and exceeding the practical guidance. And more importantly, it's also worth noting that in accordance with Stowe SPD, this plot of land unlocks the regeneration potential for the area as a whole, including highways works around the existing infrastructure and provision of additional on-street spaces, all of which has been clearly identified and marked in Stowe SPD. That's why we feel our provision should not be seen in isolation, as it will provide the necessary investment and unlock parking potential of Stowe. Thank you for your time and consideration, and thank you to Jade for the support during the planning process.
Thank you, Mr. Florchak. Councillor Davis, question?
I just wanted to say I may have missed the start of the meeting because I needed a comfort break. but I want to declare a non-pecuniary interest because I'm a councillor for the area.
You have. That's fine. Thank
Right.
you. Any questions, members, on this application? Councillor Clark?
Could I ask the agent to repeat what he was saying about the trees, the replacement of the trees? I think there's a loss of grassed area there, so I'm not quite sure what he means by having trees along Howard Way, I thought he said.
So I think what he said, Councillor Clark, was that there are certain trees which will be replanted, but there is also a planting plan which will be agreed with officers as part of the recommendations. Is
Right.
that okay? Any other questions? Wow. Okay. Comments, members? Councillor Garnett.
Thank you, Chair. Only very shortly. I remember the previous application, and my main concern was the closeness to the church, which was, from my eyes, overdevelopment. They've now corrected that, putting it, albeit only a 3.5 metre gap. So, yep, I'm happy with the application now.
Councillor Clark.
Well, I felt that there was very little change, and it still is a question of overbearing and overdevelopment. I think 3.5 metres is very minor as a change. There are a number of issues. Sorry.
Shall I come back to you?
I found it actually.
Okay.
The parking is still insufficient. As I said, there's little change earlier. I think that I would like to see what the proposals over the trees are. There is a considerable concern about loss of trees, and I can't quite see where they're going to be replaced still in this development. My real concern, however, as well, is that the £50,000 is completely inadequate. There is no, when you look at the planning obligations, 30% affordable housing, no affordable housing, 33% and 105,000, 33,000 for health, and 105,000 for education, primary education. Well, £50,000 doesn't come anywhere near even covering these obligations, apart from the lack of affordable housing. And I think that the 50,000 is really a meagre offering, to be honest.
Thank you. Could somebody respond on the trees issue, an officer? I've got you, Councillor Danvers.
Yeah, I can respond.
Not sure who's still in the room from the officers.
I can respond.
Jade, you're still here, aren't you, Jade?
Yes,
yeah,
hello. Yeah, so there would be a landscaping plan submitted at conditions stage, which I'm sure councillors can get involved with and discuss at that point if they so wish. But the applicant has made it clear that there would be a replacement planting along the western boundary, which is the main boundary along Howard Way. In effect, I think it would be half of the trees would be lost in development overall, with the remaining to be protected or replaced or added in.
Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. I've got some comments here. I don't think this is much change from the last application, which I was sitting on the committee then. The proposal constitutes overdevelopment and would not be keeping with the character and appearance of the area. I'm concerned about the loss of the grass area. I'm concerned, although it's not part of this application, about the council building that's in that land. I'm worried about the trees that are lost. And I'm also worried about its been said it's not viable for social housing. Another application we've got, not viable again, so they haven't got to provide any social housing. The applicants let the site go. It's been smashed up. All the windows are broken and things like that. So I don't really think they really care about the site. I think that it's just not, it's just an overdevelopment and not in keeping with the character and appearance of the area. So I shall be voting against it.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Danvers.
Well, I seem to be have a different view again. Is that when we had the garage on the corner, the Audi building, we had the assurances that it would be as it appeared, and it does, and it's actually enhanced. If one thing the Stowe needs, it needs an uplift and it needs modernisation. And if these pictures are anything to go by, then I think that's what it would actually give the Stowe. The service bays are no longer used anyway, but they were certainly beyond their sell-by date. And it certainly needs a complete rejuvenation of that area. And something like this would actually bring that up and actually then encourage other areas adjacent to that, possibly to think about whether in fact they should develop as well. It's not out of keeping in terms of how Harlow is perceived, is that Gibbon always thought of areas like the Stowe or Bush Fair as that kind of hard, high area. The high itself epitomises that. And they were to be things that were actually on the plan. So I hear what people are saying. I agree they should be offering more money. I agree there should be more element of social housing. But at the end of the day, given what's there at the moment, this is a darn sight better. And I think it would actually enhance. And the one thing I cannot stand is the church, which actually has put up those bold letters, which have completely detracted from that area indeed. I think that was a disgrace. It did the planning permission. I think it was actually disgraceful.
Thank you, Councillor Danvers. Could I ask officers a question? Is there a clawback mechanism in this? Jade or Alex?
So if I think I beat Jade to come off mute. So what we would normally want to see in an application where the viability assessment demonstrated that there isn't money to make up for the contributions that are sought is a clawback mechanism, so that if the site becomes viable in the future, we have a second opportunity to regain some of that money to meet the requirements. In this instance, the applicant didn't want to enter into a clawback mechanism in the 106, and the compromise that we've put forward as officers is they have a reduced time period in which to enact the planning application. The logic behind that being, if they implement their planning consent very quickly, they would have to implement it within 18 months under the recommendations before you. Then they'd be implementing development within the economic period that you're aware of and that we can foresee. And so because they'd be doing it quickly, the clawback mechanism unlikely to become relevant, and therefore we as officers are happy that the reduced time period is sufficient to offset having a clawback period. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alex. Councillor Garnett and then Councillor Hardware. Just still on mute, Councillor Garnett.
That's it. Sorry, I've got it now. Sorry, I wasn't sure whether the Councillor Souter was coming in with his condition for working hours. If he's not, then I'd like to put that forward, proposal for because it's a residential area, we need to put some control over the building hours anyway.
And what are you proposing?
What's the normal? Was it 7:30 till 5:30 on Mondays to Friday?
8 o'clock.
8
o'clock.
8 till 5:30, 8 till 6, whatever the normal hours are, and then Saturday 8 till 1, and no Sundays or bank holidays.
Okay, is that seconded? It's been proposed.
Yes,
yeah,
I think it.
Okay, we've got Councillor Souter. There's various people raised their hands, but we have that proposed and seconded. Councillor Hardware, did you want to discuss the application some more?
Yes, Chair, just to make a point. I too don't see much difference from this application to the last one. But then again, the only thing we refused it on was the overbearing to the church, which to my mind has been properly addressed. As we've found in the recent past, any development of this kind in Harlow is going to have a viability problem. Even though it's disappointing there's going to be no affordable, it is actually understandable. And I too agree that this part of Harlow, or that particular part of the Stowe, is in dire need of being developed. And what is proposed, although it is very striking, I think is very much in keeping and should be approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think we're done with the debate. I'm therefore going to move to the votes. So first we have a supplementary condition with regard to building hours. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the suggestion is 8 till 6 Monday to Friday, 8 till 1 on Saturdays. Yeah.
Chair, if I can refer members to the
Can
addendum.
we say the
sheet
usual
today.
ones, please? Because I don't think those are right. If we just say the usual.
Well, no, I do think we need to specify. Alex.
So there's two things I'd like to raise quickly, if I may, Chair. So one is, if I refer you to the addendum sheet, I think condition 11 is construction hours.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So no construction shall be carried out on site anytime on Sundays or public holidays, or before 8 AM or after 7 PM Monday to Friday, or before 8 AM or after 1 PM on Saturdays. So that is the proposal of officers in your addendum sheet.
Councillor Garnett, your proposition. Do you want to amend it, withdraw it?
What number condition is that, Alex?
11, I believe, Alex said.
11?
11, yeah.
Oh.
On Sundays, public holidays, or before 8 or after 7. Mondays to Fridays, or before 8 or after 1. Yeah, I think that's, well, it's 8 till 7, Jean. Monday to
Yeah,
Friday.
I'm surprised
That's
at
not
that.
reasonable.
Don't tell opposite me, Edinburgh way.
Right, okay. So
I'm happy
are
with
you
that.
withdrawing your proposition?
Yes,
Councillor
yes.
Garnett? Thank you very much. Right, if then we could then move to the vote. So item 8, which appears on the supplementary agenda, pages 7 to 11, conditions 1 to 17. Could all of those that are in favour please indicate? Okay, so I have 5, 6 votes for. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. I think I may have 7 for. Have I? Yes. I think Councillor Livings, you voting for? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And all those against? That is carried with a substantial majority. So if we could.
How many were against, Chair?
3.
Thank you.
We're at 6 for, 3 against. If we can move to item 9 on the agenda paper, anybody that came for item 8, you're welcome as the previous individuals to stay and watch the rest of the committee. Those of you that want to go are welcome to go, and thank you for attending. Item 9, the telecoms mast. Who's presenting that one? Alex?
Lou Sangita will be presenting that, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, can you hear me, everyone?
Yeah,
we can.
Right. This application, the reference is HWFUL 20/00049. The site is at the junction of Tilwix Road with Southern Way, and the exact location is on the southern side of Southern Way, just in front of Tilwix Road. The proposal is a telecommunications upgrade. So the proposed phase 7 monopole, complete with a wraparound cabinet at the base and associate works. If we can go to the slide, slide number 2, please. Alex, this shows the location plan. So that's Tilwix Road and Southern Way, and at the junction, the red rectangle shows you exactly where the monopole is standing, the current existing one. The next 2 slides are the aerial views, slide 3 and slide 4. Now these are taken from the GIS map, where we can see that the site comes under green wedge. So there's a lot of open area around the site here at this particular location. Slide number 5 shows the proposed plan. Now in this one, they've indicated the gray cabinets which will be removed and the existing monopole would be removed. The proposed new monopole would be standing a few meters to the west of the existing one. And all in all, there will be only one monopole with a few cabinets at the bottom. Slide 6, this is the existing elevation of the monopole, which is 11 meters high. And the next one is the proposed monopole, which will be higher. And the maximum height of this one is 20 meters. Slide 8 and 9 give you a view of the existing monopole as it is seen from when you're coming from Tilwix Road and onto the junction with Southern Way. Previously, an application for prior notification was refused for this site because they proposed 2 separate monopoles. So they were retaining the existing and a new one would go alongside that one. And we refused that one on the basis of impact on the character of the area. So the current application addresses that reason for refusal in the sense that there will be only one pole, a bit higher than the existing one. In all other terms, the proposal does comply with the requirements of policy CP10, which is the policy from the existing, the current local plan. And in terms of the emerging local plan, it also complies with policy IM4, in that the site would be shared with 2 service providers, that is EE and 3J. That's it from me, and if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have one speaker who's actually submitted their statement in writing, which is Elizabeth O'Hara. So could I ask Hannah if you could read that out for us?
Thank you, Chair. Dear Councillor, I understand there is to be a meeting this Wednesday, May 20th, regarding the planning permission for a second tower, which is 7 metres higher than the one located on Southern Way roundabout near Tawney's Road. I live in Longfield and along with other residents have objected to this second tower. 2 reasons are that it overlooks our gardens. 1 is bad enough, but 2 is worse. It is also an environmental eyesore, having 2 located together so close to houses and lovely green spaces. What will be next if this goes ahead? 3 and so on. Surely technology is such that it can be put on high buildings away from sight. The telecommunications companies say there are no tall buildings around. Obviously, they haven't bothered to look. It should be away from public view. Obviously, we don't know the risk to our health, and with Lady of Fatima School wanting to use the grassland nearby for sports, as they have put planning permission in, this would need to be considered. Maybe in the best interest of the community, we need your support to stop this. I do not object to technology, just how much junk on our beautiful greens do we want? Please support us as we support the work that you do for us in our best interest. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Hannah. Okay, questions, Councillor. I've got Councillor Davis with your hand up.
Yes, Chair. I just want to make sure that any aircraft going at the stands here, there's not any danger of them colliding with this mast.
Not as far as I'm aware. Any serious questions, Councillor Hardware?
It came to me too quick there. Just a clarification. The person who's written in or just read out, there is only just going to be 1 mast there at the end, isn't there? Yes.
Yes, I assume they were referring to the previous application, which has been withdrawn and replaced with this one.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? No debate. Councillor Danvers? No? In that case, we'll move to the vote. All those in favour of the recommendations which appear on page 50, 1 and 2, and the informatives 1 and 2, please indicate, which most of you already have. That is 8. So there's one. Oh no, who's not voted? Councillor Clark, which way are you voting?
I voted for.
All right, okay. In that case, that is unanimously carried. Let's move on to item 10 on the agenda, which is the temporary buildings at Burnt Mills School. Who's presenting this one?
It's me. Good evening, Chairman. Good evening, members. This application, reference number HWFUL 20-00095, it's for the retention of the modular classroom building within the Burnt Mill Comprehensive School site. This application is related to the redevelopment of the Sir Frederick Gilbert College, and it will accommodate up to 120 pupils affected by the development. A key consideration here is that the building is an existing building, and this application does not relate to any operational development. The building will be located to the east side of the existing school site and adjacent to residential developments in Eltham Grove. And next slide, please, Alex. This satellite image was taken before the building was being erected last year, so it doesn't show where the building is located, but it gives you an idea of the setting of the site and surrounding. And next slide, please. This plan shows you the setting of the building and how it is located in relation to the surrounding settings. There are concerns raised by the local residents, mostly related to its distance from nearby dwelling houses. The building in question is some 30 meters away from the closest residential properties. And the key consideration here again is that it's an existing structure, and the current application is only seeking to retain the building for another year. And this is due to the delays in the construction, and the temporary classroom in question will be washed and has to be removed once development was completed on the Sir Frederick Gilbert College site. Next slide, please, Alex. This shows you the layout of the existing building, and as you can see, the east elevation, which is facing the existing dwellings on Eltham Grove, are the corridors only. And the next slide will show you the east elevation. The windows will be high-level windows, which means it's unlikely to result in any overlooking or privacy issues with existing residents. Alex, can you? Yes, and the building comprises of 4 classrooms, 1 group room, and toilet facilities. And it is not considered the building would have any additional impact to the existing settings and any additional impacts to any consideration that has been given to under the previous application. And the remaining size shows photos of the existing building. This is looking from the school site towards the building. And the next photograph will show you looking from the north and including the residential development on the east. This is looking from the playing pitch within the college. A condition is recommended to ensure that the windows on the east elevation will be of clear glaze to protect neighbor amenity, and it is recommended that the building was to be retained for another year. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicholas. Right, we have no speakers on this, so any questions, members? Councillor Danvers.
Exactly what would be the date that this building now, I'm sorry if I've missed it, would be required to actually be removed from the site? I believe the intention is to take it to their new site anyway.
Yes, condition 1 did specify the date. It should be removed and restored to its original form on or before the 30th of September 2021.
Happy? Yeah. Any other questions, members? No. In that case, debate. Councillor Danvers, do you want to? No. Anybody want to talk? In that case, we'll move to the vote. All those in favour of the recommendations 1 to 4 and the informative on pages 61 and 62, please indicate. I can confirm.
I can't put my hand up.
Put your hand up anyway, Jean.
It's not working. I'm putting my hand up.
Yes, okay, that's unanimously carried anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to next business, item 11 on your agenda papers, which is the development at Sheldon Close. Who's presenting this one?
Me, John Harrison.
Right.
Right. Can we have the next slide, please? This is a house, a semi-detached house on the Church Langley estate. It's probably best if you look at the map on the left initially. It's a small 2-bedroom semi with an attached garage, which gives it a sort of L shape. The application is a single-storey flat roof rear extension, which infills the L and extends 3 meters further back along the full width of the property. Next slide, please. This is the 4th application on the site in the last year or so. 1 application was refused. This is the first application which was approved, which was a single-storey 3-meter deep extension just across the main house, not the garage. In fact, this was permitted development, but as I made a planning application, we granted it anyway. Next slide, please. The second one was for the same single-storey 3-meter extension, and there's a second approval. There'd been a refusal in the meantime, but that doesn't really need to worry us. For this, in addition to the single-storey element, this had a first-floor element going back 1.5 meters, taking the gable back 1.5 meters, so that it was part single-storey, part 2-storey, which was approved by the planning committee. The other one was dealt with under delegated powers. Next application, next plan, please. This is the floor plans. Now, if they built 3 meters on the back of the main house and 3 meters on the back of the garage, they would not have needed planning permission because that's permitted development. But because this extension is L-shaped and exceeds 3 meters, it needs permission. It projects back 2.9 meters, so slightly less than the 3 meters previously approved. The floor plan on the right shows that fairly clearly. Next slide, please. And that's the elevation. With most extensions, the main issues are the appearance of the impact on neighbours. The appearance is straightforward. It's a small single-storey extension, not bulky, quite small. Traditional flat roofed appearance, perfectly usual. In terms of impact on neighbours, the other half of the pair, you can see part of it on that on the slide. It actually projects slightly less than what the council has been previously approved. It's 2.9 rather than 3 meters. So in that respect, the impact on that neighbour is less than what has been previously approved. The effect on the other neighbour, and I should explain that there's a rear service alleyway between the this property and the next neighbour. It will only project 2.9 meters or thereabouts beyond their main rear wall, which is an acceptable impact. Next slide, please. That's existing in the proposed side elevation, showing the view sort of from the non-attached neighbour or the alleyway, however you like to consider it. Next slide, please. It's not really visible from public vantage points. That's the view from Rushton Grove. You could just about see it, but barely. Next slide, please. These are some just general photos of the area. I expect most of you, if not all of you, are familiar with Church Langley, but it gives you a feel for the area. Next slide, please. That on the left shows the house, which you've seen the plans already, but that's in real life rather than shown in a drawing. Next slide, please. These are the two neighbours' houses. 33 is the attached neighbour. 35 is a non-attached one, separated by the alleyway, as I've said. Is there another slide, or is that it? I can't remember. Oh yes, that's the final slide. It's a rear extension, so the front view would not be changed, but that gives you the front view just in case you want it. I perhaps should say there's a lot of the neighbours' objections relate to issues like building regulations, Party Wall Act issues, the fact that the developers or the householders already have the foundations dug. They are not anything you should take into account. As I said, the main issues are impact on neighbours and appearance. Also, parking is an issue to be considered. But as we've explained in the report, the 2 spaces which the 2-bedroomed house would require is provided, and we don't think it should refuse. Well, it would be very weak grounds if we tried to refuse it on parking grounds. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Any questions? Oh, sorry, I've got a speaker that submitted against, which is Mr. Tong. Do we know where Mr. Tong lives?
He's the non-attached neighbour.
So he's 35.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Hannah, could you read that out?
Thank you, Chair. I would like to submit the following with regard to the Development Management Committee meeting, now alternatively arranged for the 27th of May 2020. I am against the application. I would like to add and further reiterate the important comments and question I made on the 19th of February 2020. The workings for the footings regarding this application for a full width, boundary to boundary extension were started on Monday the 25th of November 2019, unannounced and without required notice, in brackets, line of junction and adjacent excavation, close brackets. This was before the application at the time, HW/HSE/19/00363 at current habitable building width had even been decided. Regarding the building notice application made on Sunday 24th of November 2019 and received the following day. Section 4, proposed work. Question 2 asks, are you affecting access to, building over or within 3.0 metres of a public sewer? This has been ticked as no by the applicant. This sewer across the rear of the properties has always been mentioned as being shown on land registry plans in comments to all planning applications to this property. There is a manhole there. An estimated floor area of 27 metres squared in section 6 would indicate the extent of the workings. Application HW/HSE/19/00363 was approved in December 2019. A surveyor was initially contacted by myself during the week of the workings started in November 2019 and then taken on by the applicant. The surveyor made a partial act award in January 2020 that shows a single-storey side and rear extension with a rear first floor and roof extension at the current habitable width. Asked via the surveyor, there has been no clarity on what is intending to be built. Again, I object to the application due to the overdevelopment of the original design structure of this style of buildings in the close and out of proportion, the high risk of damage to the property / its structural integrity with such a proposed extension with enlarged and elaborate footings for bridging structures. The standards, limited space / access and logistics of materials and any construction. There has already been one mechanical digger go over on its side during trench digging. Massive and further disruption, the unordered planning approach to an unclear extension project, and no neighbour consideration. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Hannah. Any questions, members? There's no other speakers. Debate? Councillor Garnett, question or debate? You're muted, Councillor Garnett.
Yeah, sorry, it's because it's different to what I'm looking at. Just clarification: there are no windows in the side flank wall overlooking the neighbour. Can't see any.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? It's clear most of the objections are linked to the construction phase, which we're not involved with. Okay, debate.
And the parking, Chair, is provided. That was another objection, but they provide 2 places, don't they?
They do, yes.
Oh,
sorry. Who's got a question?
Nope.
Yeah, go on then, Councillor Garnett.
It's the working hours. We haven't got working hours in the conditions. This is a minor development, but it's in the middle of a residential area.
You could impose one if you wish, but I would point out that one of Mr. Tonning's concerns, which I've got some sympathy with, is he is a night worker actually, and I think that's a major concern of his related to this application. But whilst I'm sure we can all have some sympathy, construction in the day when you're a night worker, we couldn't really take that into account. If you want to impose a condition about operating hours, you could do it to add that on if you wish.
Well, I'm all in favour of working hours, and then people know what they can and cannot do. Otherwise, they could be working until late at night, and it disturb the neighbour even more. So,
well, it might not disturb him if he's at work. I think that's what John is trying to suggest to you, Councillor Garnett.
If they work late at night, they may.
I think we're better not. I think we're better not conditioning it. I think is what John Harrison is suggesting, and I tend to agree with him on this one.
I go on advice because it's a small development. It's probably the quicker they do it, the sooner they finish.
Indeed, it is only a 1-storey extension.
Yeah.
It shouldn't take them forever.
And the environmental health powers are available if they are really on social hours.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So debate. Anybody want to speak on this? It's fairly straightforward. No. In that case, we will move to the vote. All those in favour of recommendations 1 to 3 and informative, which appear on 69 and 70 of your agenda paper. That is unanimously carried. Thank you very much, members. Moving back to the agenda paper, agenda item 12, there are no references from other committees. Agenda item 13, there are no matters of urgent business.
Yeah, can I just have a point of clarification for me
Yeah.
on the first application?
On which?
Perhaps,
On
is that
what?
all right?
On what?
The Perry Road application. I just want to, I've got something in the back of my mind. The application was for a retrospective
Yes.
Change of use.
Yes.
Have we legalised that change of use by giving them a deferral? Because at the moment it's illegal, isn't it? Am I going down the wrong avenue or what?
If I may offer assistance, no, you haven't. No, what you've done is you said you're not in a position today to determine the application that was before you. So you have deferred the application with the instructions to officers to work with the applicant to finesse their application, to update it in relation to what they are saying their business is going to evolve into before it comes back to you at a later date for consideration. So the application remains live, and therefore there is no consent in place, and they remain at risk of possible enforcement action if you are unhappy with the amended proposal, which will come back to you in due course.
Have we got a time limit on that, or can they come back in 3, 4, 5 months, 6 months?
Yes, we should have really specified.
Could I suggest that this isn't to be discussed in this open forum?
Well, where can it be discussed? We've left ourselves in
questions. Right, it's not relevant. We've deferred it.
Oh, yeah,
if you want to ask questions outside of this, you're more than welcome to. You can direct them at Alex offline. Okay.
Yep. All right. Okay, Chair.
If we therefore, I'd like to wrap up the meeting and thank you all for attending. Could I?